I'll tell you some Jaguars that have to step up if this team is going to elevate. I'll do it here on Locked On Jaguars in just a second.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, y'all? Welcome to another edition of Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day, and we always thank you for making us your first listen. I am the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast. My name is Tony Wiggins, and this podcast can be found on YouTube for free. Subscribe, go to the Locked On Jaguars YouTube page, hit subscribe, hit the like button, and hit that bell so that you receive notifications each and every time we drop an episode. Also, wherever you get your audio podcast, make sure you tap in to that location every single day to make sure you don't miss an episode. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Shout out to the everydayers for joining us here and becoming an everydayer. And you can do the same thing. All you got to do is come on in here every day. All right, we're going to talk about people that need to step up, step up, or shut up. And I'm not telling them to shut up. I'm just telling people like me to stop talking about them if they don't put up this year. I'm going to let you know it is. It's Devin Lloyd. That's the main one. And then two central figures also in the defensive backfield. There's going to be Tyson Campbell as well as Cisco. And I think they'll be helped also by a little bit of a schematic change as well. So let's get into it. We ain't going to break it down too much. Why is it important for these guys to put up this year? Well, we need to know what the Jaguars have because it's time to start paying people. Trent Baalke mentioned that they were going to start looking at extending some guys, right? The guys that obviously Trevor Lawrence is one of them, and that's a no-brainer. But on offense, you probably still are looking at another year or so, and maybe even the fifth-year option if they decided to pick it up on Travis Etienne. That's one. Offensively, we got to see what they do with Zay Jones, and maybe he still hangs around if they don't address wide receiver, and even if they do, he may still leave Zay in place, and we'll have to see about that. Brenton Strange, of course, and Tank Bigsby, they got to pick it up from where they did not start it off very well last year in their rookie campaigns. Walker Little is someone that's going to have a whole bunch of say about the swing tackle position. Maybe if somebody gets hurt, he can play himself into a bunch of money and give the Jaguars something to think about. The only way he gets on the field is that if somebody is one of those tackles gets hurt or they decide to move on from Cam Robinson. So that's kind of wanting to see him on the field and so he can prove what he can and can't do. It's a little bit sort of counterintuitive because that means that somebody may not have achieved what they were supposed to do or they got hurt. To run through a couple of more of these folks on the defensive line, you want to see some more out of Devon Hamilton. You want to see if he's back to his form, right? Before he had his illness last year, his form was trending up, and the illness affected the way he played last year. So obviously that's a player that you want to see some improvement out of. I think people want to just see more out of Roy Robinson Harris outside of a flash here and a flash there. Chad Muma can show that he's more worthy of a little bit more of attention than everyone is giving him. But once again, that's somebody else because of the extension to Foye Oluokun and because we're going to talk about the guy that's in front of him, Devin Lloyd. For Chad Muma to get on the field, there has to be something that either they're winning a bunch of games or somebody got injured, right? Chris Braswell and Greg Jr., they're going to have to step up and try to hold something down because I get the feeling that with the way this team is about to currently be constructed, that they got to get it done or they're going to start getting drafted and recruiting over. And that might even happen in this offseason coming up or in this draft coming up. The Jags have already signed a corner and another nickel that they had to go out and spend money on. So you would think that if those guys were where the Jaguars would hope that they would be, that the Jaguars could have saved that money and then just gone out and added some depth in the draft with some young players, because those guys would have been able to come up and be plugged right in. None of that has happened, though. There has not been a super amount of development. I think Antonio Johnson is going to be somebody that proves to be way better than anyone that thought he was when he got drafted, except a few people that were surprised that he was drafted that low. He's probably going to be the one guy that you can say over the last couple of years the Jaguars actually developed and stuck in. Now, if you want to include Andre Cisco in that, that's fine. But at the time that they got Andre Cisco, we fully expected him to play because this team really kind of looked. They were one of the least talented teams I'd ever seen in the National Football League. So therefore, when they got him, it was a no-brainer that he was going to be that he was going to. That he was going to be a guy that was eventually going to be the starting free safety on his team. But now that the talent level has gone up, now that they've won 9 games 2 years in a row, and yeah, I said that, and they're going to I know there's going to be some people that are say, Wig, but you always say they're not where they're supposed to be. They're not. And I don't even think the Jaguars brass believes that they are where they're supposed to be. But there's some people out there that want to keep focusing on the fact that them winning 9 games 2 years in a row is like it's some miraculous feat. In the grand scheme of things, and it really isn't. So Antonio Johnson may be the one guy. He may be the one guy, tried and true, that was actually drafted by this team and then has been put in an elevated position where we didn't expect it. That's a day 3 guy, and there's not many day 2 guys either, but that's a day 3 guy. Tyson Campbell has improved over the years. We're going to talk about him and Cisco in segment 3, but he has improved over the year. He has gotten a lot better and had a little bit of a setback last year because he was hurt, but we'll see about him. But there is a target here, and the person that I really, really wanted to make this show about is Devin Lloyd. That's the person on the thumb tag. That's the person that we are individually going to discuss first. But I had to not make all of those other guys an afterthought. I didn't want this to come across as, okay, I'm going to talk about Devin, and then I'll mention Tyson, and I'll mention Cisco, and then in the last segment I'll go and run through 19 other people like I just did. I really wanted to make sure that you guys know that I think this is going to take a team effort. It's not going to be about 1 or 2 people. But I do think that the 3 guys that I'm going to focus on for the rest of the show are within striking distance based on the amount of commitment, the amount of snaps that they've had, their play at certain times, and the fact that they're kind of trending upward. And I do believe this new scheme and the new way that they do business on defense is going to really, really help those dudes, because I think all of them play better when you're super, super aggressive. So first up is Devin Lloyd. He'll be a 3rd-year linebacker out of Utah. We're going to discuss him and the things that I believe he has to do to get better and what impact him getting better actually has on the team. We'll discuss that in just a second here as we continue with more on Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is brought to you and sponsored by Robinhood. That's right. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting your every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC, is a registered broker dealer. And we are rolling along here on Locked On Jaguars. Beautiful day here in North Florida. I think it's about 80 degrees outside. I ain't trying to brag or boast, but Jacksonville does have weather that is better than most. How about that? I'm hitting you with a little freestyle here on Thursdays. Devin Lloyd. A lot of evaluation of him has been a little bit of a freestyle because, well, there's been no rhyme or reason to the results that you've gotten based on from year one to year two. However, I do believe that there was enough early in year one and then enough in year two that makes me think that Devin Lloyd is finally gonna be put in a hot spot and figure it out. So if we have our druthers, right? You think about Ryan Nielsen, you think about guys that have been successful under him. And I know the easiest thing to do is go to his last stop in Atlanta and try to find a dude, but I'd rather not do that. I'd rather go to the stop prior to that, which is in New Orleans, where those guys loved him to death, and where he led a defensive line that was, of course, led by Cam Jordan and had a lot of really good play with guys like Sheldon Rankins. But on that front end, the way that they played, they allowed the front end to work really good with the back end with Marshawn Lattimore and Honey Badger and those guys, and then Demario Davis. And that's the name that I want to talk about. And even though Devin Lloyd is not your traditional Mike linebacker that would more or less fall to Foye Oluokun, I do believe because of the way teams play with basically running a 4-2-5 these days, that those positions are pretty much interchangeable. Like you'd have never told me 8 years ago that Levante David would be an off-ball linebacker in a 3-4. I'd have told you you're crazy because he's a pure will. I actually think him making that switch and then thriving in that really, really, in my opinion, with Levante David, it takes any argument away from him not being a Hall of Famer. I think because he was able to switch and they were able to win a championship and he was such an integral part of them doing that, especially with Devin White doing what he wants to do half the time. I really do believe that good players find a way to be good in whatever scheme that they're playing. I'll say that again. Good players find a way to be good in whatever scheme the defense is playing. Now, that doesn't mean that scheme doesn't matter. It does to team success, but not to individual success. I think if you can play football, you can play football, right? And sometimes you may not be as productive because they have you doing things, i.e., if you're a pass rusher and you're dropping back in the coverage 40% of the time, that doesn't mean it probably means you won't be able to get as many sacks as other people, but it doesn't mean you can't play well enough to show people that you can get sacks and do a whole bunch of other things. So one thing is focusing on individual performance. The other thing is focus on how does that performance affect the team and can you win with it. So I think Demario Davis, in my opinion, represents the way that I want the Jaguars linebackers to play under Ryan Nielsen here. Sideline to sideline, smart, intelligent, able to do a lot of communicating. And I think after 2 years in the league, coming into his third year playing next to Foye Oluokun, Devin Lloyd is primed to be able to make a jump. And the jump that I'm talking about is maybe not Pro Bowl level jump, although that would be nice. And that would really, really hammer home the point that I'm trying to make if that does happen. But I do believe that there's some balance here and there's some ground here where you don't have to be that good, but you can be better than you've already been. And what that is be one of those dudes that people mention for the Pro Bowl, or be a very good player on a very good unit, because we've seen that in the past. When a unit is really good and a guy is making those positive contributions and they're finding a way to use his individual talent to affect the way that the whole machine works together. I just think Devin Lloyd has a lot in his bag, especially if you're talking about just using that raw talent. The things that he struggled with had in the past been whenever running backs run across his face, and it wasn't just him, it seemed like everybody. On drag routes, the Jaguars were getting killed. On wheel routes, they seemed to be getting destroyed. And then on some of those tight end release routes, when teams have bunch formations, if you look back at Cleveland, on those release routes where you got to know who your man is, because if not, you end up chasing David Njoku down the field looking crazy on tape. If you go back to Cleveland, it was Devin Lloyd. I had a coach tell me Devin chose the wrong guy. The coach that told me I ain't here no more, but he did tell me. I just flat out said, whose fault was that? He said it was Devin's. He said, but we understood why he did it, but it was his fault. He didn't go. He chose, it was two guys in that vicinity, and two Jaguar people basically chose the same responsibility, and that left David Njoku wide open on a 4th down play. And that was probably one of the things that killed him in that game. And if you recall, the Jaguars were 1 game away from making the playoffs. So all of these little things count. Devin Lloyd has to show more of an awareness of what it is they're asking him to do. And I think that by simplifying things a little bit, that's going to help. And that word simplify has been mentioned before by Doug Peterson. It doesn't mean dumbing down. I think sometimes when we hear the word simplify, we mean somebody can't understand what they're supposed to be doing, so we need to dummy it down. We need to go to coloring book stage for them. That is not what it is, and I don't want anybody to even infer or think that that's what I'm trying to infer, that Devin Lloyd can't understand defenses or he doesn't understand the complexities of football. Because by the time you get to this level, the complexities, it comes natural. It comes with the territory. You should know at this point enough. The difference is are they confusing you? And then we need to simplify it. It doesn't mean that we need to take something that's standard and make it real easy to understand. It just means that maybe the things that we were trying to do too much, and it was too complex, and we're treating these guys like they've been together year after year, whereas sometimes you just have to simplify it. Sometimes it's in your communication. Sometimes it's not just in the communication, it's in your responsibility. And sometimes you just turn to those dudes and you rely more on their natural football instincts, as long as they have a basic idea of what it is they're supposed to be doing. Now, as the season goes on, teams will start nitpicking, and things will work against the defense, and you'll see it, and then guys have to be able to adjust. One thing I will tell you about Devin Lloyd is I think he's mentally tough, and there's no way to see that by just looking at him, gazing into his eyes, or anything like that. He fought through his rookie year. He fought through a hamstring. Then he got off to a really quick start, but it seems like he was still a little bit slower. And then once teams figured out how to attack him in the defense, it seemed like he started to struggle. And if you recall, he was pulled out of the game. I don't know if anybody will actually clarify that or call that as a benching, but he was taken out of the game in Kansas City, and they inserted Chad Muma. And the next week I said, watch Chad Muma get a start. And he did. If y'all remember that, after that game, I said, it's Muma time. Eventually, Devin got his job back. Eventually, what happened was Muma started to have some of the same struggles, right? Devin Lloyd came in last year. He looked slimmer. He looked like he had a real chip on his shoulder, and you saw it in training camp, and then you saw it on the field. For all intents and purposes, Devin Lloyd was not a weakness. I'll repeat it. He was not a weakness on this football team. Now we're going to try to see if we can get Devin Lloyd to go from it went from a weakness at year one, an understandable rookie weakness who had missed most of training camp, to not really a weakness and was just solid. Now we need him in year 3 of being a first-round pick that they traded up for. We need him to step up another level. And I more or less think he can do it. I think the scheme will help. I think another year of hard work in the offseason. I think learning from his experience that he's already had with the Jaguars, I think all of those things will help. So that's why he is numero uno on my list of guys that I hope really step up. And I think that if he does, it could really help elevate the transition to a new defensive coordinator and keep track with everybody in the division, since all of a sudden everybody thinks that our division is just a runaway for a certain team in Texas. I don't believe that is the case. And then the Titans breathing around like they think they're good. And then, oh, by the way, the Colts almost won the division last year. So everything's going to get tougher. So we got to get tough with it if that's if we want, to eventually win a championship. We're going to talk about 2 more of his teammates in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. I want to know, are you watching Fox Sports and ESPN on your TV all day? You have to turn down the volume with all that shouting and yelling. I can mute my TV and still hear those people. Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day, to bring you the biggest and the best stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, we're going to get into Tyson Campbell and Andre Cisco, two guys that might have a contract extension before we get to training camp. We'll discuss it in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. I got to let you know about the Gametime app, man. That's right. If you are in the mood to be going to see a sporting event, a play, a comedy show, or the theater, whatever it is, you just didn't have the money when you heard about the announcement and the show's getting close, don't fret, man, because the Gametime app is what you need to help you with last-minute deals to buy tickets to any and every event you can imagine. They specialize in last-minute tickets, flash deals, and zone deals. They're easy to find and buy any kind of ticket you want for every kind of event in your area, with views from all the seats in the venues, lowest price guarantee, event cancellation, job loss protection, all of that stuff. All right. The priority is the last minute deals, man. You can save up to 60% off buying last minute sports, concerts, comedy, theater tickets. All you got to do is take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. I'm going to spell it, LOCKEDONNFL, for $20 off when you download the Gametime app. Download the app today, and last-minute tickets, lowest price, it's always guaranteed. And passion, drive, and patience is the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance: superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need and the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. All right, third, final segment here of Locked On Jaguars. We're at your team every day. I know guys love when I say that, man. Everybody says that I'm an everyday wig, and I'm like, all right, man, what's your name? I'm going to shout you out on the show, and they show up and do it every single time. We've been talking about guys that need to step up, or we just need to shut up about them. Devin Lloyd is the first one. I think he's been very, very solid, especially second year, and I think his third year, there's a lot of blue sky for him to lift and uplift this team, especially if they're going to turn him loose, man, and make him play downhill. Now, in order for that front to work, we need the back to work, right? So they go out and get Ronald Darby, wily veteran who is a man-to-man ball hawk, to play one corner. They are going to obviously play Darnell Savage at nickel, who they went out and got. So that leaves Tyson Campbell as that front line face-to-face, man-to-man, either press or bail guy, who's going to be lined up primarily, I believe, on the right side of the formation. Long, 6'1", 200, athletic, extremely fast, has track speed. Got to get him to play that ball a little bit better, man. So once he is able to show us that he can do that, I think the guys his size, with his profile and with his temperament and his makeup, they don't hit the free agency market. So I do think you're going to see him probably get a contract extension either before camp or leading up to camp before the season starts. And I think it'll be good. But in order to do that and to justify that, he has to show up. Whether he gets it before the season or not, Tyson Campbell has to be better at playing the ball. I think Chris Richard can help him out a little bit with that and make him functional. I think with Bob, I said functional. You can take that B out of there, right? But the main thing with him is when you talk about him playing better when he sees ball, that's where the press bail technique is going to help because you have less of your back turned to the quarterback, especially if you're turning guys back inside, unless you're giving up the sideline trying to press a guy, then your back maybe to the quarterback. But at least it's not all the way on the quarterback at the beginning. You get to see what you can react to first. The other player, Andre Cisco. Same draft. One is a second round pick in Campbell, third round pick in Cisco. It's time for Andre Cisco to go from promise and potential to absolute production. One thing he has to do is find a way to stay on the field. And the way that he plays, he's yoked up, man. If you ever really seen him in person, he's not wiry. He's 6 feet tall, but he's yoked up. He's got a little size to him, right? And so he uses that size, he uses that physicality, and sometimes he gets a little bit banged up. But he has shown the ability to just the play that I am constantly reminded of is one that he made last year. I believe it was against Kansas City early in the season where he picked Mahomes off. He went deep and went back. And it was either against Kansas City or Houston. It was one of the games. I know it was one of those early games because when I was limping around before I had my hip surgery, and it was one of the only few or two of the only few that I went to at the stadium, and those were it. I think I went to the Monday night game too with Cleveland, but it is all, in my opinion, about him staying healthy and finding a way. If that pass rush improves, you'll see him be way, way more decisive than you've seen him in the past. And he's another player I believe the Jaguars have to try to ink early because he's shown you enough that you need to be able to build on him in the future. How much you spend on him or any of these guys, that's up to them to decide whether or not they think that what's being offered is worth it. But I think it'll do the Jaguars real good to get both of those guys under contract. Tell you what else you can do, man, and that is go check out Locked On because they have launched we have launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. And now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Here's what else I want you to do. I want you to do some mock drafts for me, man, and I want you to post them on social media at Shop Talking Wig on the X app and send them to me, and I'll give you some grades, and I'll try to take the best of those and talk about them on tomorrow's show and what we can expect, what realistic compensation or what realistic people will be around. Don't do no crazy trades. I've seen some crazy trades already where the Jaguars ended with 2 first-round picks and a second-round pick, and all they did was give up their first-round pick this year. That ain't going to happen. So let's try to make it as realistic as possible. And sometimes those simulators don't even do that. All right, man, you guys have a great, great day. Enjoy this Florida weather. And until next time, you guys take care. Make sure if you're a YouTube watcher, that's great. But if you're going to be away from your computer or you're going to be away from your screen or your phone or you're going for a run or you're driving and you can't watch, make sure you listen wherever you can get audio podcasts. Please do that and tap into that location as well. All right, we'll see you next time here on Locked On Jaguars.